Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out. We got this far, don't know how. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We gonna light it up now. Just like a spark that's breaking out. Can't make a stop, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up tonight. We gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We gonna light it up now.
Hey guys, welcome in everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? I feel like I'm sitting a little close to the mic. It's because the mic's a little close to me. So there we go. How's everybody doing? How's everybody's end of their weekend? Hopefully you guys had some good weather where you guys are. It was cloudy, rainy, thunderstorms. It was all the things here today. So hopefully you guys had some sunshine where you were, because it wasn't happening here in Ohio. I wish it was. We went to the store, and of course, we're standing in line, and we heard like this big thing of thunder, thunder. And I'm like, oh, if we can hear that from in here, I don't want to go outside. It was pouring. So, and we didn't have an umbrella, but that's okay. That's how it works. But welcome in, everybody. It's good to see you guys. I saw Ladybug, and I saw that baby girl was here, and Mary Beth. We got the whole crew in here tonight. Look at that. Tom's in here. Hey, Nicole, how are you? Welcome in. Welcome in, Kathy. It's good to see everybody. It's good to see you guys. Hey, Colby. Cue the music, and that's when I did. When I tried to come into StreamYard, it wouldn't let me come in for a minute. I was like, I'll be right there. I think it's because I restarted my computer, and it disconnected my mic, and I'm like, why did it do that? Let me make sure it's on the right mic. Yep, we're good to go now. Okay, cool. We're good to go. Hey, Monchichi. Oh, you had a good surf. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I read about him the other night too. Judge Hippler. Yeah, he does felonies over $10,000 or more. And then he's a district judge. But if you think about it, I was thinking about this and I didn't do the math. There's 9 people on death row and they've been there for like 40, like going on 40 years, like the longest one. Remember we went through them before, and like one of them had been in there since like the 80s. One had been there since like 91. So the people that are on death row there, it basically they're just segregated. Like, I mean, because by the time that they go, I feel like it's going to be of just natural causes. Hey, Dawn. Hey, Kara. What my dog's doing back here? Oh, she's making herself a little bed on the floor. I got to get her a new bed. She's making herself one. She's being really cute. She was not being so cute today when she chewed my basket, but we won't talk about that. Hey, CJK. Hey, Jog. I mean, that's the only problem I have. That's not too bad. Hey, MB Marsh. But I am really sad about the basket. And Vincent thought he could find it, but he could only find it in bulk. I'm like, you're never going to find it. It was the perfect basket. It was a set. She got mad at me today. Hey, Brenda. Hey, Simply Southern Mama. Welcome in. That's a cute little picture. At first, I thought it was a mouse. It would have been cute if it was a mouse, though, too. Dude, is Ashley Higgins in here? Did I pass her? I didn't see her. Oh, you said, where are you? What good is a DP if you don't use it? Well, exactly, right? Hey, Devaney. Yeah, they don't use it very often. I think the last time that I don't know if they ended up ever executing that guy, because we went through the list and he was on there like twice. The Thomas Creech guy. Should look him up right now. See if he's still hanging out on. Maybe he's like, don't get me yet. Let me get Brian Koberger in here. He's still there, I think. Wait. Well, yeah. There's no death date there. So he was born 1950, and he grants the stay of execution. Like, why did they grant him a stay? I'm just curious, because like, wouldn't that be something like, don't mess with my emotions like that. You know what I mean? I don't know. Oh, after surviving a botched execution attempt in February, Thomas Creech was scheduled for execution a second time on November 13th in Idaho. Oh, look at the date. On Wednesday, November 6th, a federal district court issued a stay of execution to allow more time to consider Mr. Creech's legal claims. He's been on death row for like 40 years. The Idaho State of Corrections announced that execution preparations have been suspended and the execution warrant will expire. So, oh my God, I don't know how this happens. But I guess the execution team tried 8 times to set an IV line, and they inserted needles into his hands, feet, and legs, but each time the veins collapsed. Nope. That's when you bring in the little tool. They have tools for that. Like when I was in the hospital, my last time I went in for surgery, it's been actually like 3 years almost since I've had my last surgery. I usually have them once a year, knock on wood. But I'm somebody that is dating somebody that's terrified of needles. Terrified, will not see me get an IV. He will get up, he'll walk out of the surgery, like the little, like the surgery room, he'll just walk out for the second it takes to put it in. He can't be around it. So they were like, we have this really cool tool you want us to show you. And they put it on my arm, and it's mostly for like children or babies or like older people that have like, or just people in general that have extreme high anxiety, getting a needle. And it shows you exactly where the vein is. It's crazy cool. Like when you put it over your like arm, it just like shows your veins. So why wouldn't they get one of those in all the prisons? A one and done. I understand, they're on death row for a reason, and maybe that's their punishment and that's like their karma or whatever. But if you're going to take someone out, just firing squad, maybe that's what he should vote for. Because if you busted my vein, I'd be out. That'll pick me up right off the table. That's happened to me before. And it hurt really bad. Really, really bad. So I couldn't imagine my legs, my feet, hitting up all the spots. They should have just asked him. I wonder if they asked him. I mean, I know that's the dumbest thing I could have ever, that's a dumb question kind of to ask, but seriously, did you ask him? Because at that point, he probably would tell you like, hey, this is what's going on. This is where it's at. Oh, and that's another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about. There's been, I just heard about it right before I came on. There's stuff going on in Idaho and Coeur d'Alene. So apparently somebody set a fire, or a fire was started. And then when the, EMTs, ambulance, firemen, they went to go in and, try to contain the fire, they were met with bullets. So there are a couple, I guess, dead. I don't know if I think they're firefighters, but I want to be correct when I say it. And I just was watching the press conference, and it said that they're still there, like wherever the fire is, like if they're on the mountain or wherever they're at, they're still there, because they can't go in because people are shooting. Now, we don't know if it's multiple or if it's just one subject. It is possible that it could be Travis Decker. I mean, if there is just one person in there, if you can walk it 3 days. I looked it up earlier, and he's been out there just wherever for weeks. So he definitely could make it there. But I'll try to keep my eye out. I have Twitter up. Let me make sure that okay, yeah. I'm gonna make sure I keep it on here that way. Well, no, actually, I'm just gonna go to Brian Enton, because I feel like he's been on top of it a little bit with things. It says ATF special agents and fire investigators from Spokane, Portland, and Seattle offices are responding to the scene in Coeur d'Alene. Wow, it's a lot of people. So they're not messing around. And he was trending again earlier. So I'll try to keep my eye out while I'm reading. If you guys see something, put some like fireworks in the chat. That way I'll see the message, and we'll flip it over. Hey, Dion. Yeah, well, Nicole, I thought, could he walk that, and I'm like, because I'm like, well, they're beside, near each other. So I'm not familiar with that part of the country, the West. So I mean, Vincent is, but I'm not. But I put it in Google Maps because I knew it was Chelan, like county is where he was at. And so, yeah, why target the firefighters? So the only thing that I could think of, if it is Travis Decker, like if it is, what if he accidentally started this fire, or whoever did? I don't know why they would shoot people though. So like that to me screams like the T word, terror, to me, that's what that screams. But you never know who it can be. It could be him. I hope it's him in a way, just so that, we know where he's at. But that's good that you got out today, Monchichi. I think I got out, but I didn't get to go to the pool. But I went to somewhere even better. I went to TJ Maxx. That's even better. And I got Vincent to go inside with me. So we'll start reading our book. We're actually we're down to the last 2 parts of it. So we'll be done after tonight. But I was going to go over, I wanted to make sure I went over everything with you guys. I think that was it. Oh, actually, so tomorrow is June 30th already. I was like, wow, that came quick. So tomorrow they have the hearings are scheduled in Monroe, Pennsylvania, Monroe County. So they're going to determine if few individuals, 5 to 7 individuals, I believe, are going to be testifying over in Idaho for Brian Koberger's trial. So I have their names still pulled up here. There are Jesse Harris, Ann Parham, Ralph Vinicio, I don't know if that's how you say it, Maggie Sanders, Anthony Soma, and then William Searfrost. And I know that one of the, and Brandon Andriola, one of them got Maggie. So Maggie, hers is now scheduled for July 7th. She got a continuance, but everybody else will be there tomorrow. I thought I didn't hear it because I didn't watch JLR today, but I must have saw it on his Twitter or something that he said that I think he said he's going to be there. No, maybe he's going to be in Idaho. You guys think of Pennsylvania? I don't know. I'll keep my eye out though. I'll keep my eye out on those times, but I think that I thought I heard him say he was going to be in Pennsylvania tomorrow to see who was trying to go in, but that doesn't sound right. I think it was actually Idaho for when the grand jury starts or something. So just pretend like I didn't say anything. I'm sleepy today. I'm not really sleepy. It's just been a long day. It's been one of those days where I've seen like things here and there, and I want to make sure like I'm saying it correctly. I'm thinking that he said he was actually going out to Idaho, but I don't know exactly what for, other than if it would be for jury selection. But I'm like, just don't take me on that, because if I say something, I'm like, hold on a second. No, yeah, don't take that one seriously. Pretend like I didn't say that. I'm gonna go over to his Twitter really quick so I can just have the peace of mind, because I think that's probably where I saw it. So, firefighter ambush. Okay, so, man, he posts so much. Stop doing that. What? Nuh-uh. Wait, hold on a second. Just hold on a minute. Reports of 5 people shot in Springfield, Ohio. Okay. I'm gonna. Oh my God, this is so stupid. No, there's not. I don't think that's correct. I'm gonna say no, but I can't see where I saw it. So maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't see it on it. Maybe it was on his Facebook. I don't know. Either way, he'll be there for one of them. So we'll go ahead and we'll get to our book. But I do remember him saying that he was going to be there for some meeting or something. I don't know. Just because I remember thinking, oh my gosh, he's going to yell at one of them, do his like JLR kind of thing that he does. You did this, you're guilty. He's said and done a lot. It's pretty funny. Yeah, there's a hearing tomorrow. So there's a hearing tomorrow in Pennsylvania. So there's been a few names that have been subpoenaed to come and testify over in Idaho. And all of them are saying, well, I don't really want to go to Idaho. So they're having a hearing tomorrow to see if they do need to go, and I guess what date they need to be there. Because I mean, I would assume they wouldn't need to be there through the whole trial. I would assume that. But if they don't get their testimony in a certain way, I don't know, you're telling a story at trial at the same time. Like the judge was saying, well, whoever's going to be here for Brian Kohlberger's family, if they're going to testify, can you have them do that at the beginning? And that just, to me, I would have been like, no, I can't do that. Because that's not part of the, like, when you're telling your story, like that would just, I would get confused. So that's just me. Let me grab the book. I want to see, I forgot to do this before, but I always like to see how many chapters are in each part. Okay, so I can't believe we're on part 10. I can't believe we're going to finish this tonight. Okay. And I will get to reading in just like 2 seconds. Okay, so just type out there, write that out. Okay. So part 10, over the last couple of parts, they just went like he just dealt more, did like a deep dive into the investigation, behind the crime and stuff like that. They talked about the white Elantra, the trips, that he was taken from his Pullman apartment to Pennsylvania, how, he was pulled over a couple times. The media, the citizen sleuths that kind of took this case under, their wing and kind of went with it. And then the victims, kind of their focus. Then on part 9, they went over the suspect's background, community and the legal impact, and the demand for justice. So we're going to be on chapter 50. It was still Christmas break when news of Brian Kohlberger's arrest in connection with the King Road homicides hit the national headlines. Most students were at home with their families preparing for New Year's Eve when they heard of the alleged perpetrator's capture. There was a general sense of relief and also astonishment as they learned more about Koberger, the PhD candidate in criminology who had allegedly lurked among them for weeks after the killings. In just a few days, students would start to return to the University of Idaho campus. Some would feel comfortable walking to classes again, while others, no matter that a suspect had been caught, would remain frightened. They would barely leave their dormitories at first, and there would be an uptick in food orders from the Starship fleet of robots on campus, 15 gleaming white six-wheeled autonomous containers capable of navigating the U of I sidewalks and wooded pathways, through winter break or winter weather. Wow, they can go through winter weather. On the morning of January 4th, Koberger was loaded in Pennsylvania State Police into a single-engine fixed-wing aircraft that seated 11. The plane departed and took a northern route across the country. It landed twice to refuel, and by evening, the plane was wheels down, and the state police were ready to transfer their cargo. Koberger's transport was met by Idaho State police officers at the Pullman-Moscow Regional Airport just across the border in Washington State. It was long past dark when Koberger, in handcuffs and shackles, was led across the tarmac to a caravan of vehicles. He was then driven back into Idaho and booked into the 37-inmate Latah County Jail. He was kept out of the general population for his safety and the safety of others, and there were plans in place to accommodate his strict vegan diet, which he had reportedly turned to years earlier while searching for a remedy to his visual snow symptoms. Meanwhile, the Idaho State Police were continuing to process the evidence taken from Koberger's apartment, identifying items in a variety of post-search documents, including evidence logs, chemical testing logs, and narrative reports written by law enforcement personnel. From two closets on the north wall in the entryway, they retrieved a single black nitrile-type glove, receipts from Marshalls and Walmart, the dust container from Koberger's inexpensive Bissell Power Force vacuum, and possible hair strands from the head of a broom. From under the computer pad on Koberger's desk, they retrieved a possible animal hair strand, which was notable because Koberger had no pets. Crime scene analysts had also removed a possible human hair from the wall of his shower and multiple hairs from inside the shower drain. From Koberger's kitchen, according to chemical testing logs, they removed a white towel with a diluted irregular reddish-brown stain. There were multiple other items with similar colored stains in the kitchen, including on the counter, inside a drawer, on a screwdriver, and a bottle of Ajax soap along the back of the countertop microwave and on two switches behind the sink. Other reddish-brown stains appeared inside and outside two bedroom closet doors and between the fibers on a towel found on a nearby stool. Multiple irregular red stains were found on the exterior of the bedroom door, and red-brown stains were found on the bedroom door jamb along both the interior and exterior of the bathroom door and within the bathroom itself, including along the edges of the medicine cabinet, wooden vanity countertop and cabinets, and door jamb to the separate toilet room within the bathroom. There was a reddish-brown stain on the underside of a rug beneath the coffee table and a similar stain on the carpeting beneath the rug. There were two additional reddish-brown stains on an uncased pillow atop Koberger's bed. The largest stain immediately tested positive for blood, as did an irregular-looking brown drip on the mattress cover. Out in the world, reaction to Koberger's arrest was dominating coffee shop talk. And inside the Latah County Jail in the basement of the courthouse, Brian Koberger was held in a solitary confinement cell that a previous inmate had said was too short for a 6-foot person to remain comfortable inside. The bed was beside the toilet, and if he slept with his head in that direction, the smell would be foul. If he slept with his head towards the bars, the corridor lights would hit his face. Mounted cameras were trained into the cells, none of which were in good condition, according to the ex-inmate Corey Clem. The paint is all chipped off, it's rusty, the drains are full of nasty filth, it's mildewy in there, the ceilings are extremely short. Clem told News Nation, "It's just a small claustrophobic metal box, it's not fun." Koberger was the only person known to be housed in the maximum security holding area at that time. He was alone with his thoughts, although his Tapatalk ruminations from years earlier offered clues to what they might have been. I have this horrible depersonalization go on in my life for almost 2 years. I often find myself making simple human interactions, but it is as if I'm playing a role-playing game. I feel like an organic sack of meat with no self-worth. I am starting to view everyone as this. This is when he was 16. I mean, I don't know if that's like puberty brain or if this is just like the budding of a psychopath, you know? I guess we'll be studying this for years to come because these are the writings that we'll have, you know, other than if he puts out anything new. Everything I have, if he is guilty, I'm saying, you know, everything I have ever done makes no sense. How did things get this way? How am I wearing this shirt? And who decided that humans shall wear shirts like this? Are we all just advanced animals with possession, or is there more that I can't see? I can't connect. I view everything as if I'm playing Oblivion, pointless and full of nothing out of reality. And Oblivion is a game, like on like Xbox or something. As my family group hugs and celebrates, I am stuck in this void of nothing, feeling completely no emotion, feeling nothing. I feel dirty, like there is dirt inside of my head, my mind. I am always dizzy and confused. I am intelligent, but I feel the opposite. I say things I don't mean. As I hug my family, I look into their faces. I see nothing. It is like I am looking at a video game, but less. Is it like I have severe brain damage? I am stuck in the depths of my mind where I have to constantly battle my demons. Am I here or am I fake? I feel myself slipping away. I hear screams faintly, but I constantly battle away from it. I think about my father, what a good man he is, how I treat him like dirt because I have this condition and I can't take it. Now I look in the mirror and I see this sickly, tired, useless, and stupid man in the mirror. He is a complete disgrace. He doesn't even deserve to live. I remember when I was 15, I would wander alone at 2 a.m. Everything was so generic. Nowhere felt like home. I saw things that were not there, a different reality. I felt eerie and alone. I died during those nights. I felt like a criminal, but where was my record? Chapter 51. In a small courtroom in Latah County, Brian Kohlberger made his first court appearance on January 5th, one day after returning to Idaho. He was brought in without handcuffs. He wore an orange jumper with the word prisoner across his back in black lettering. He was cleanly shaven, but the hairs along the back of his neck had grown unkempt while in jail. Kohlberger sat beside his court-appointed public defender, Ann Taylor, who was also chief of the nearby Kootenai County Public Defender's Office. Taylor was one of only a handful of Idaho public defenders qualified to represent clients in death penalty cases. That was important since the prosecution would likely seek that sentence with a guilty verdict. Not only was the death penalty legal in Idaho, but Idaho would soon become one of the only 5 states to authorize death by firing squad in cases where nitrogen hypoxia, lethal injection, and electrocution were held unconstitutional or otherwise unavailable. Taylor had periodically defended Xana Kernodle's mom against her drug charges. Now she's defending the man accused of being Xana's killer. The judge, Megan Marshall, apprised Kohlberger for the charges against him, which included unlawful entry into the King Road residence and 4 felony counts of murder in the first degree for premeditatedly causing the deaths of Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin by stabbing. Marshall's face showed no emotion as she addressed Kohlberger. The maximal penalty for this offense, if you were to plead guilty or to be found guilty, is death or imprisonment for life. Do you understand? Judge Marshall asked after each of the murder charges were read aloud. Yes, Kohlberger said each time, leaning into the desk-mounted microphone before him. After the charges had been read, Marshall added, would you like to represent yourself, hire a lawyer, or see if you qualify for court-appointed counsel? I have court-appointed counsel, Kohlberger told her into his microphone, acknowledging Ann Taylor's presence beside him. Court has reviewed your application for an attorney at public expense, Judge Marshall told him. I do find that you're indigent and do qualify for court-appointed counsel. I will appoint Ms. Taylor to represent you in this case. Kohlberger was denied bail and reprimanded to state custody until a status hearing could be held 1 week later to decide on a timeline for his trial. He was also served with a no-contact order preventing him from attempting to communicate with Dylan Mortensen, Bethany Funk, and the family members of the King Road homicide victims. Kohlberger had nodded politely and appeared calm throughout the proceedings. On January 12th, he was again brought into Judge Marshall's courtroom. He was again clean-shaven, only today there were fresh cuts on his face from his jail-issued razor. They looked like cat scratches across his jawline. His hair looked shiny as if recently washed. Cameras from multiple national networks were filming him from the public gallery in the back. In keeping with sometimes perplexing nature of the American court system, the purpose of the day's status hearing was to determine the future date of a required preliminary hearing. In layman's shorthand, whereas the previous week was about reading Kohlberger his charges, this week was about figuring out when or if he would face them. Under his right to a speedy trial, designed so that people accused of a crime don't endlessly languish in jail without proof of their guilt, Kohlberger would be allowed a preliminary hearing within 14 days of this January 12th court appearance. At that time, another judge would review evidence provided by the prosecution and defense and possibly hear from witnesses. A preliminary hearing is, in sense, a mini trial, like a teaser to a movie in which a appointed judge can get a sense of how a case might play out and decide whether there is sufficient evidence to move forward or if charges should be dropped altogether. It was also Kohlberger's prerogative to waive his right to a speedy trial and remain in jail while his attorney made preparations. In that case, a preliminary hearing could be set many months out. This is often a good strategy when a defendant is facing serious charges, since it gives legal teams more time to build a defense. Taylor stood before the judge and requested such an extension. "We are going to ask the court to set preliminary hearing out into June," she said. "Mr. Kohlberger understands his right to a timely preliminary hearing and is willing to waive the timelessness to allow us time to obtain discovery in this case." Discovery was the term used for the prosecution's evidence against her client. The prosecutor, Bill Thompson, stood up in agreement, his long white beard reaching down to his tie. "The state has no objection to that, Your Honor." Kohlberger's next court date was set for June 26th, over 5 months away. He was removed from the courtroom by a sheriff's deputy gripping his left arm. Judge Marshall had also issued a gag order preventing public discussion of the case by any member of law enforcement or the court system or any other entity associated with the case, including family members of the victims and their representatives. In essence, due to the intense media interest in the King Road homicides, Judge Marshall was shutting out the media going forward in order to maintain the integrity of the case and to ensure an unbiased jury should the case go to trial. The media wasn't happy, as their sources, who had been close to the investigation, such as cops in the Moscow PD, would dry up under the threat of legal action by the state of Idaho. A contingent of dozen of media outlets unsuccessfully sued to remove the gag order. So did Kaylee's father, Steve Gonzalez, who wanted to keep his daughter's story alive in the press and who wanted to see that Kohlberger got what was coming to him. "Justice is when you leave the planet," he told News Nation, explaining why he thought his daughter's killer should be sentenced to death. "If you want to play God's role, you're going to have to go answer to him." Ironically, the opinion piece decrying the death penalty that Mary Ann Kohlberger had written for the Pocono Record 15 years earlier now seemed like a foreshadowing of her own deepest fear, losing her son. "State-sanctioned murder is still just that," Mary Ann wrote, "murder." Chapter 52. The media didn't know the totality of the evidence against Kohlberger. All anybody outside of law enforcement could know for certain was that the probable cause affidavit for Kohlberger's arrest had spelled out. The affidavit was the multi-page document used to prove just enough evidence to get a judge to sign off on a warrant to take Kohlberger into custody in Pennsylvania. It didn't have to list all of the evidence, only enough for probable cause, the current standard for an arrest. So when anyone tells you that's all the evidence they have, you tell them, "No, I don't think so." The affidavit emphasizes Kohlberger's alleged familial DNA found on the K-bar knife sheath at the King Road crime scene, his white Hyundai caught on security cameras near the scene at approximate time of the murders, and his cell phone pinging the tower servicing the King Road residence at the same time. It had also noted Kohlberger's cell pinging there late at night a dozen times previously, as if he'd been stalking the victims in the months leading up to their murders. And Kohlberger's interest in law enforcement and criminology studies were mentioned along with his recently posted Reddit survey asking criminals about their state of mind, which to the media now looked like a bid for tips of the trade, not academic research. I believe that too. Then there was Dylan Mortensen's statement about seeing a masked man who fit Kohlberger's general description. The man she saw was Caucasian, roughly Kohlberger's height and build, and with bushy eyebrows, that she'd remember from a small facial area that remained exposed. While Kohlberger's eyebrows were not much bushier than those of an average man of his age, his brow itself was prominent. He fit the description. After his arrest and subsequent jailing in Idaho, the probable cause affidavit was released under public information laws. With the gag order in place, the affidavit was the next best thing for the media to scour. To most, Kohlberger looked like the guy who would go to his death in prison. Many of the criminal defense attorneys weighing in publicly, however, saw gaping holes in what the probable cause affidavit had presented. Mark Garagos was one of those attorneys who saw ways for Kohlberger's team to argue that some of the evidence was insignificant. Garagos has represented celebrity clients, including Michael Jackson, Winona Ryder, NBA star Scottie Pippen, and former NFL player Colin Kaepernick. Did any of those guys win their court case? Or because I know why Winona didn't, along with a slew of people facing charge of murder or attempted murder, including UFC star Cain Velasquez, who several months before the King Road murder shot into a car of people driving away with a man who had been accused of molesting Velasquez's young relative. Man, according to Garagos, who appeared on TV in the days after Kohlberger's arrest, the probable cause affidavit was flimsy at best. It had holes that you could drive a Mack truck through, Garagos said. He was joined on one network by Marcia Clark, famously the lead prosecutor in the O.J. Simpson murder trial. If I had anything to do with that trial, I would never talk again. I can't tell you the number of murder cases where the prosecution's cell phone evidence ended up exonerating my client as opposed to showing that he was guilty, Garagos said. Name me one, Garagos. Like, I can't tell you the number of murders cases where just listen to this statement. Garagos, no. I can't tell you the number of murder cases where the prosecution's cell phone evidence ended up exonerating my client. No. Name me one case. And then if you can name me one, name me another one. Name me two. I bet it happened maybe one time or something. And he's like, it happens all the time to me. Sorry. Didn't mean to cut into my reading with that, but it says, as I'm sitting here, right here, I could be using my phone and it could be pinging on the two towers 12 miles away from each other just by virtue of the amount of traffic on one of the towers. Cell phone tower evidence was a good tool to approximate distance, Garagos said, but Kohlberger could just as easily have been a mile away from the King Road residence as 10 feet. I agree with that. He did not have to be driving on King Road on the dozens of occasions previous to the homicides to have pinged the tower that serviced it. I think he got pulled over. Garagos was additionally suspicious of the affidavit's argument that Kohlberger turning his phone off around the time of the murder somehow implied that he was guilty. There were many reasons a phone could be turned off, and it was a prosecution's burden to prove Kohlberger's guilt, not imply it. If the defense offered a believable alternative reason for his phone being turned off, a jury would, by instruction of the judge, have to discredit the prosecution's previous speculations. You got to pick the one that points towards innocence, Garagos said, meaning that two viable options for Kohlberger's behavior should by law lead to a finding of not guilty in the face of reasonable doubt, which is the constitutional standard jurors are supposed to adhere to. I agree, Marcia Clark said, and she was anything but light on crime. As they say, in fact, she had spent over 50 years dedicated to prosecuting and studying it. Garagos later appeared on News Nation beside Jim Clementine, a former New York City prosecutor and FBI profiler. The two engaged in a point-counterpoint debate about the strength of the probable cause affidavit, primarily addressing the cellular data tracking of Kohlberger and the touch DNA on the K-bar sheath. The DNA evidence is extremely strong, Clemente said. Coupled with the other circumstantial type evidence they have listed in the affidavit, it certainly points to one person, and that person is in custody right now. Garagos was not so certain. In his time as a defense attorney, he had seen too many suspects charged with crimes they hadn't committed. Have you really? Nowadays, probable cause is my client breathing. He joked about what he believed to be the loosening of protocols for charging suspected criminals. What they found was a suspect profile on the sheath. We don't know where the sheath was specifically. We don't know how it got there. We do now. Amazon delivered it, and Kohberger delivered it to Maddie Moget's bedroom. We do know that. He was insinuating that the existence of the sheath in the Kingwood residence was not the same as having proof that Brian Kohberger had entered the residence, let alone committed the 4 murders. Never said that part. A good defense attorney could argue that somebody else had left behind the sheath, or that Kohberger had been in the residence on another occasion with the sheath, but not on the occasion of the murders, or even that he had been in the residence without the sheath on another occasion, and that his DNA had been left behind, and that the sheath had inadvertently been contaminated by it. What if Kohberger had been stalking the victims but hadn't killed them? What if his reason for being in the area on 12 previous occasions was that he had a friend in the nearby apartments? When convicting a suspect of murder, the law required proof beyond a reasonable doubt and without the murder weapon, or more than just a single touch of DNA on a piece of leather. That's not right either. If that was the only physical evidence the police had gathered from the King Road crime scene, then the case would be successfully challenged, Garagos believed. He continued to explain that there was room to explore human error as well as database error in the comparison between Kohberger's father's DNA and his own. They rummaged through the trash. They found some DNA, Garagos said with a grin. It was easy to see where he was going with this. Anything could have been contaminated by anything else in the trash. If the DNA evidence from either the garbage bin or the knife sheath was too degraded a sample, it could be discredited in court. And then where would the prosecution's case be? As far as anybody in the public knew, that single trace of DNA was the only biological evidence pointing to Kohberger's guilt. The rest was circumstantial, and the defense could argue many things. He was a nut, obsessed, a stalker. He was bad, but he didn't kill those kids. Garagos wasn't alone in pointing out additional flaws in the DNA evidence. The DNA is nice to have, former CIA officer Tracy Walters said. It puts him at the scene of the crime, but it doesn't put him at the scene of the crime on that day and around that time. Then she added, this is a hole that can be poked in the prosecution's case. Kohberger's public defender seemed ready to start enlarging that hole and brought in a second attorney to assist with the case. That would have been Jay. What nobody in the public knew, because the information hadn't been released yet, was that the DNA swab taken from inside Brian Kohberger's cheek after his arrest was a statistical match for the DNA that had been found on the knife sheath the perpetrator had left behind. It had apparently been his father's DNA that allowed for Kohberger to be taken into custody, but it looked like his own DNA would keep him there. Chapter 53. There were, however, non-believers in Kohberger's guilt, partly because of what they'd heard online about the alleged weakness of the prosecution's case. Some online sleuths had even been charmed by Kohberger's public profile as a tortured soul, and social media threads about his innocence proliferated. For what appeared to be the first time in his life, Kohberger started getting love letters. They arrived in Latah County Jail by the handful. Criminologist Michael Artfield, one-time police detective and now co-director of the Murder Accountability Project in Washington, D.C., a think tank assisting in the investigation of unsolved murders, was not surprised that some wanted to believe in Kohberger's innocence. It's traumatizing to think that there are people wired like this. People don't want to believe in monsters, but if the information that had emerged publicly about him was true, Artfield said, Kohberger had all the telltale characteristics of an organized night stalker, someone who plans his killings, then preys on his victims in the dark, and he is probably a psychopath. Artfield adds. A neuropsychiatric disorder marked by deficient emotional responses and lack of empathy, psychopathy often results in antisocial deviance and criminal behavior. But Artfield could also see why Kohberger supporters remained unconvinced by the actual evidence against him. Other than the DNA, it's circumstantial. Artfield says, and amateur investigators tended to think mistakenly that circumstantial evidence is inherently weak. But before the millions of cameras in the United States, he observed that's how almost every crime was solved. Absolutely. Artfield's years of expertise led him to believe that in addition to psychopathy, Kohberger most likely suffered from paraphilias or atypical sexual fantasies. Atypical. And he's probably weapon focused. A lot of time would be spent thinking about it, shopping for it, looking at it. The K-bar knife was long. The female victims on King Road were small. One could imagine their stalker obsessing about such a weapon's power over them. The average psychopath, Artfield is careful to add, doesn't roll out of bed one morning and immediately take up murder. Presents its it repre- it represents I can't even say the word. Oh my gosh, I can't speak tonight. Okay. It presents the graduation of the previous offenses. In Kohlberger's case, there could be precursor attacks in the vicinity of where he was living or working that are of interest to law enforcement. There may even have been previous violent crimes. Kohlberger is not a serial killer by definition, Artfield explains, but the crime has many of the hallmarks of serial homicides, targeting strangers, paraphilic in nature, excessive violence, stalking, and planning, recognizance of location. Yeah, well, let me actually go back to that. Yeah, knowing what you know now. He adds, and the victims are typical of a serial doer's fantasy. Someone the offender sees as a type of ideal partner that they could never have. Very public-facing, attractive co-eds. Kohlberger might not have killed before, Artfield said, as saying, but if he was going to kill, then the young women on King Road made sense as his victims, given Kohlberger's inability to connect romantically with so-called popular girls. Serial killers have to start somewhere. While police had not yet linked Kohlberger to any other crimes, some of the results of their search of the Kohlberger family home in Pennsylvania raised disturbing questions. The application for the search warrant had spelled out that the police were looking for, among other things, any property belonging to the victims or the surviving roommates of the King Road homicide, since killers often take trophies. While there were no items belonging to the victims cataloged in the search inventory, it was noted that 2 ID cards had been found inside a glove that was stuffed inside a box. It said ID cards. It didn't say 2. That 2 isn't on there. It's either says 10 cards or it says ID cards. I think it's ID cards, but yeah, it didn't say 2. I'm going to write this author. Dateline later reported that a source had told them that the ID cards were the driver's licenses of 2 young women, neither of whom had been associated with the King Road homicides, 2 women whom Kohlberger had apparently known in his past. And those licenses he had hidden away in a glove, which was hidden away in a box. They didn't just roll out of bed and commit murder, Artfield said. It was a graduation of offenses. And then chapter 54. Chief Fry, of course, was a firm believer in his case against Kohlberger. The evidence pointed to him, but so did the sentiments of many of Kohlberger's past associates. Within 1 hour of releasing Kohlberger's name to the press, Fry said the Moscow PD had over 400 callers to their tip line offering additional troubling information about the man. And as the media dug into Kohlberger's past, a pattern of hostility towards women emerged. What Fry definitely didn't want was so much media presence that when the time came for Kohlberger's murder trial, it would be hard to find an impartial jury in North Idaho. That is one of the reasons that we are holding everything close. We are protecting the integrity of the case, he told News Nation. We want unbiased individuals in this case. We want people to not know all the facts. If too many local people knew too much about the case beforehand, the trial would be moved to a larger county, and Fry wanted Kohlberger to be convicted of the quadruple murders in the place that had been affected most. Even if that wasn't a possibility, Fry was hopeful about the prospect of his community being given an opportunity to heal. There were a lot of different things were a lot different than just 3 weeks earlier when Chief Fry and several of his officers had appeared at the King Road residence with a U-Haul, pickup trucks, and official police vehicles to personally collect the victims' belongings. The team had lugged boxes and plastic storage containers across the ice-covered communal parking lot, looking like a family helping one of their own move houses. Fry himself had attempted to back the U-Haul up the driveway, but the slope was so icy he stopped halfway. He let the truck gate be open right there, and for most of the morning, Fry and his officers had done the intimate transporting of the 4 victims' earthly possessions from one arm to another. Somebody carried a bag of shoes. Somebody else lugged a laundry hamper. There was a white desk chair on wheels being carried. Then 2 cardboard boxes had been stacked into the arms of an officer with the word State Police in solid white block letters across the back as he puffed out cold air. Nobody had spoken during the very grim undertaking. Now Chief Fry and his team felt a sense of cautious optimism. Nothing would bring back the King Road victims, but the mood was lighter and almost everything had immediately changed. I think that gives a great relief to our organization, a great relief to our community, Fry said, and in this case, the state, the nation, and I think even the world. Chief Fry had spent nearly 2 months being scrutinized on the international stage. Millions had watched his every move, so he knew the global impact of Kohlberger's arrest. When confronted by a reporter about whether or not he felt vindicated that his investigation was now being seen in retrospect as relatively expedient, given the challenging and horrific circumstances, Fry answered humbly, "What I feel is we did our job and we did it right," he said. "We're not a prideful group. It hadn't always been so easy, procedurally or emotionally, for many of his officers. Fry had brought in mental health counselors for members of his team who'd been the closest to the case, something he'd been advocating for in the police department for years. It was 4 people murdered with the use of a knife," Fry said. He paused, then added, "There's things that you don't forget when you go on any of these calls." The blood alone was enough to cause nightmares. Each human body holds roughly a gallon of it, and 4 gallons were at least partially spilled that night inside the 1122 King Road. The unfortunate truth about blood loss, however, is that just losing 20% of the body's supply can be fatal. Complete drainage, known in the movies as bleeding out, is infrequently the cause of death, says forensic pathologist Dr. Michael Baden, host of HBO's Autopsy and an expert consultant in some of the world's most infamous murder cases. In fact, the body most often bleeds into itself. Baden explains, particularly the vital organs have been attacked. Most of the blood required for life usually remains inside of us, he is saying, just not where it belongs anymore. If you are stabbed in the chest and yet you end up on your back, there may not be any blood observed because the blood is pooling in the abdomen areas. It does not come out of the swab or the stab wound, except by gravity. If the body is turned over, the blood will come out. Photographs of the exterior of the King Road house with blood having found its way down the foundation seem to indicate gravity had been working against at least one of the victims. Baden adds, and you don't die from the stab wound. It cuts through the nerve tissue in the skin and you feel it, but a death usually occurs from the loss of blood, which takes time. The bigger the blood vessel is cut, the quicker the blood loss to the brain, which is ultimately the cause of death in a stabbing incident. The brain shuts off after it doesn't get enough oxygen. Baden says the brain will go first and then the heart follows. Several minutes could pass before death by stabbing. There are exceptions that are grotesque to think about. Occasionally, a stab wound to the skull from a heavy knife with a strong person with a puncture to the brain can cause a loss of consciousness. But other than that, a stab doesn't cause unconsciousness immediately. This seemed to imply that the King Road homicide victims may have lived until after their attacker had left. Depending on their wounds, the victims may have moved themselves away from the initial point of attack, and they may have known that they were dying. For police officers like Chief Fry and his team, visualizing the crime scene as they found it was bad enough. To picture the moments before the victim's death were horrific. Now we're on the last part. Welcome in, everybody. What happened Midwest? I want to know. Oh, he had a grandson? 6 pounds, 1 ounce, 19.5 inches long. That's a perfect baby right there. Oh, congratulations. We got babies everywhere. We got grandbabies everywhere. It's even better because you could give the grandbabies back. You know, my niece is going to have a baby too. But we do have a lot of babies. Oh, it's exciting. It's always nice to see, like, when people come in and they say baby's been born. Remember when Cheryl was here and she had the twins born? That was amazing. Oh, Cheryl. I hope she's spending a lot of time with them grandbabies. didn't see it. Okay, we'll get back to our book. I was just reading the chat for a minute. And thank you guys all for being here. If you don't mind, take a second and hit the like button, and make sure you tell Midwest congratulations. So it says here, Xana Kernodle's funeral in Post Falls was officiated by her former gymnastics coach Todd McLean, serving as pastor for the proceedings. An intimate ceremony began with the singing of the first stanzas of an 8th century hymn, Be Thou My Vision. Anyone who knew the entirety of that lyric call to God might have appreciated that the latter stanzas were sung. Be thou my battle shield, sword for the fight. Xana's farewell wasn't the place for invoking more violence in the world. A good name is better than fine oil. McClellan began his brief sermon quoting elasticities. And the day of death is better than the day of one's birth. There were sniffles from the attendees. Outside the nearby Coeur d'Alene mountains were collecting new snowfall, and the Spokane River ran ran cold and crisp as it swelled through turns in the snow-muffled forest. When a child is born, we can be happy for the parents and we can be excited about the potential for the child, but we don't have memories to look back on, McClellan explained earnestly. We don't have the experiences that can bring us joy when we reminisce on them, but rather today we can share memories of our old dear friend, and these memories can bring us a measure of comfort. And that is what Xana's mourners did. They told stories with McClellan taking the lead. I know a few days after I found out what happened to Xana, my daughter and I were sitting at our place of business and talking about it, he said, fighting against tears. We were struggling. We'd been glued to the news just like all of you had been. We had been wanting the answers. We were angry at times, felt sad at times, confused, felt empty inside, felt like we'd been kicked in the stomach and the nauseating feeling that wouldn't go away. His breath was audibly catching. But then my daughter, I swear every time I read you guys, my throat goes dry. Okay, we're good. We're good now, I think. His breath was audibly catching. But then my daughter brought up a memory, he said, when Xana and his daughter Sydney were in grade school and they tried to become Instagram and YouTube famous by producing video content about their daily lives, like the Kardashian family who built their brand on just being their quirky selves. McClellan played Xana and Sydney's first effort for the mourners. The two girls on the screen couldn't stop laughing long enough to finish filming. My name is Xana. I'm 12 years old, and then giggles. The sound of Xana as a young girl crackled in the air. It was a hard sound for her mourners to hear, but there was a noticeable lightening of the room too. Xana had been alive after all, and in her life there had been laughter. Through technology, it transcended the passing of nearly a decade, and it transcended the darkened passage that her loved ones had been roaming without her in the weeks since her murder. By the time Xana's older sister Jasmine spoke to the mourners, the mood was still lifting. In describing their childhood together, Jasmine said, "One time she threw a roller skate at my shoulder." She laughed. It seemed naturally summed up their relationship. Xana had been wild and fun, Jasmine recalled, and while the two had fought like cats and dogs growing up, by the time they were both in college, Xana had constantly told Jasmine how much she loved her. Her voice breaking over almost every syllable, she added, "I don't know why our time was cut short, but I know that God has a plan." On her Instagram account, Jasmine had posted about some of Xana's writings from her recent English class at the University of Idaho. She had written about the song Blazy, a remix by electric band Louis the Child, whom the music lover had seen in concert. "It was a song I will imagine her dancing to each time I hear it," Jasmine wrote. "Order up 100 roses, Nita Benz like blase blase. I'm just whipping Maserati," were the lyrics. Xana, the girl on body cam footage at King Road holding her driver's license nervously in her hand for the police, worrying about being under the legal drinking age, even when police themselves hadn't much cared. Xana, the girl who rarely wore makeup, whose natural blush that summer with Ethan before the murders looked to have come from sunlight and love. Being Instagram and YouTube famous like the Kardashian, her coach had said about her desires, dreams that were fueled perhaps by having survived the sometimes difficult circumstances of her childhood. Like so many of her generation, she longed to be seen and acknowledged, an ambition she was carrying into womanhood. On TikTok in front of the Sigma Chi house, she did a round off. She did a back handspring and landed on her head, crumbling into herself like something like laughter and pain at the same time while somebody filmed. She wore a wizard cap, held a magic wand. She did the Running Man dance. She hid under blankets, made monster faces at the camera. According to police documents, Xana's phone showed that she'd been logged into TikTok just before the homicides at around 4 a.m. Sorry. Xana had been scrolling, maybe even checking the likes on her latest video. Whatever audience she had, they of course couldn't have seen what happened to her that night. Like very few things, it wasn't filmed. But after they certainly could imagine, and Xana's audience was now very big, her voice carried across the distances. Chapter 56. A few months after Brian Kohlberg's arrest, Stacy and Jim Chapin set up the Ethan Smile Foundation to raise money for college scholarships they hoped to provide to students from Skagit Valley where they lived. I think it's Skagit. Someone was trying to help me with that, but I think it's almost a Skagit. Helping to fund the foundation was a new venture with their friends at Tulip Valley Farms, who were promoting Ethan's smile mix of yellow and white tulip bulbs, the white for the brilliance of his smile and life, and the yellow symbolized his cheery attitude. Ethan's mother had a video created to promote the foundation. She stood in front of the tulip fields where weeks earlier she had been interviewed on a national TV network with tears in her eyes. Now she wore a lavender tone hoodie with a screen print of a yellow tulip on the front. Life without him is tricky, she said of Ethan, the wind tussling her hair. She held a bouquet of tulips in her arms as if holding onto her son. Some of the proceeds of their family foundation would also go to the University of Idaho for its own scholarship purposes. Stacy and Jim's organizational skills seemed to offer them a pathway through grief. They had no illusions that they would get to go to the other side of that grief anytime soon, if ever. They just understood that sinking into it could make it worse. They forced themselves to embrace a positive attitude given the nightmare they were living through. As difficult as it was, we tried to stay way over here in our happy lane, Stacy says. Wake up every morning, put our best foot forward under really shitty conditions. To end that, Jim and Stacy had granted very few interviews and had stayed away from the media spotlight as much as possible, other than to promote the foundation. When they did briefly open the doors for that reason, they were bombarded. We agreed to talk to some press, she says, planning a brief event for a few regional outlets that she and Jim felt comfortable talking with. Little did we know, every single news organization flew to the farm because they knew we were going to be there. She and her husband also had film companies chasing after them, hoping to lock down production rights to the Chapin family story. It was overwhelming. I couldn't imagine. We had a producer fly out the other day, she says. We have people coming that are Emmy Award nominated. I don't know what to make of that. It doesn't change the outcome. The Chapins had hired a public relations gatekeeper to shield them, and they were making every effort, she says, to take the high road through their suffering. That included not hanging on to anger at the person in custody, Brian Kohlberger, or to whoever might be convicted of having taken their son's life. We're not going to the trial, she says. I don't care about the outcome. A guilty verdict wasn't going to bring Ethan home to their family, and it was a family that still needed her and Jim to be emotionally healthy if they were going to thrive. Our two kids have a tough road, but they need to be kids, and they have to have lives and educations and children and families, Stacy says. We have to move forward. It hadn't been easy. The initial weeks had nearly crushed her and Jim's souls. One day I was walking by myself, she told a local Fox reporter in one of her rare interviews to promote the family's tulip venture. I was crying so hard I happened upon someone and I thought they were going to call 911 on me. Now she had reconnected with her purpose as a mother, as a wife, and as a citizen. Their family motto had always been go big or go home, and the family had found a way to adhere to that. By spring, their foundation had sold over $200,000 in merchandise from their tulip operation, including 83,000 bulbs, 1,300 Ethan Smiles sweatshirts, and 750 fresh cut bouquets of the blend that had been named after their son. Their daughter Maisie had recently been named the sweetheart of Sigma Chi, the fraternity Ethan had been a member of, and their brother Hunter still was, an honor that meant Maisie was now officially allowed to wear the Sigma Chi letters if she chose to. The fraternity as well had recently established a scholarship fund in honor of the memory of Ethan Chapin, who entered Chapter Eternal on Sunday, November 13th in Moscow, Idaho, and its donations page, which had quickly raised $125,000, a hefty $100,000 beyond its original goal. Maisie posed for a photograph in front of her brother's brothers. She wore a light blue dress with a heart-shaped charm around her neck. She clutched a bouquet of red and pink roses. Hunter was in the photograph too. All of them were smiling like Maisie. All of them were her brothers as well, now a few dozen young men who had her back moving into the future. The only brother missing was the one Hunter and Maisie had spent 9 months in the womb with, their heartbeats in sync in the following 20 years beside. It would be brutal getting used to Ethan's absence from their photos, but Maisie and Hunter had their own lives to think about too. Somehow they would have to. Their mother had a way she tried to think about it. We'll still be a great family, Stacy says. It'll just be 4 of us and a memory. Chapter 57. The spring after the murders, Madison Mogen's family wanted to find a meaningful way to celebrate her birthday. Through social media, they encountered the renaming of May 25th as Maddie May Day and urged those who had been following her case to commit random acts of kindness. Pay for a stranger's coffee, mow a neighbor's lawn, the family's website suggested. There's a photo of Maddie in a pink dress, one hand gently playing with her hair as she stared into the lens. She looked like a portrait in a museum, painted in a time that already seemed long ago. The family wanted people to remember the joy of Maddie's life, not the violence that had taken her. We were just so lucky to have her in our life at the time that we did, Ben Mogen said to his local Fox station about the inspiration for Maddie May Day, whose hashtag spread across social media beneath posts about good deeds offered in Maddie's name. There were photos of flowers and cookies given to strangers, boxes of donuts somebody had brought for their office mates, gift cards slipped into the palms of people who were struggling, whipped coffees purchased for employees at a fruit market, and hugs upon hugs doled out. Maddie May, I didn't know you, but I am inspired by your story. Somebody wrote on Instagram. You make me want to live life to the fullest and be the best person that I can be. If there was a takeaway, Ben would have wanted it to be that. He remained in North Idaho, where Maddie's childhood fell. I'm impressed. He was working 2 jobs, some days with counseling sessions in between. I work a lot, he says, as if that were the sum total of his life now. And he was trying to move past the pain of losing his daughter. Other than to promote her birthday, he had been backing away from the media as much as possible. So had other associates with the case, like Jack Showalter, the young man who'd been seen at the grub truck in downtown Moscow with Kaylee and Maddie on the night of their murders. After being seen on the grub truck live Twitch feed, turning his baseball cap forward and pulling his hooded sweatshirt over the top of it, Showalter had become known as Hoodie Guy to social media sleuths and the mainstream true crime media alike. Before there was an arrest in the case, Showalter's image appeared in the broadcast of nearly every major network covering it. His alibi that he'd driven home overnight to see his family at 2 a.m. after a night of drinking and through wicked mountain passes didn't make any sense to a bloodthirsty public in the seemingly endless weeks before a suspect had been caught. Although Showalter had been cleared by police, he received death threats online. The telephone numbers and addresses of his family had been doxed, and once it was discovered that his parents, both physicians in Boise, had money, Showalter was really cooked in the opinion of the amateur sleuthing community. Some suspected the Showalter family was politically connected and avoiding accountability because of it. One person falsely claimed that Showalter's uncle may even be the state attorney general. Even Steve Gonzalez had briefly thought Showalter was a viable candidate for suspicion, since the whole Showalter family had reportedly flown to Africa immediately after Jack's drive home on the night of the murders. Some people came to us and said that he's out of the country. He didn't take a DNA test, Gonzalez told the New York Post in the initial days of the investigation. So we were like police to tell us what his alibi was. Gonzalez's suspicions and his demand for more information about Showalter were understandable to many. His daughter had been murdered and somebody was supposed to go down for that. Any father would ask questions. By December, Showalter had gone into relative hiding with his family on their 2-acre property in the foothills behind Boise with the drapes closed on their windows of their big family house. There were paparazzi at the end of their long private drive. That's really sad. Once Brian Kohlberger was captured, none of those early suspicions mattered anymore, but they mattered to Showalter. Hoodie Guy was just a college kid when all of this had started, and now there were untold millions of social media hits linking him to the crimes. Those links and his emotional ties to the victims would never go away. Yeah, if people put out like stuff that's like that, they should retract it. They usually don't. Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk had also endured rumors that they'd been involved in the homicides. Most of the speculation derived from the puzzle of why neither had called the police until almost 8 hours after the roommates had been killed. Dylan took the brunt of the harassment, especially after it was learned that she'd heard cries and other unusual sounds and had heard a man say, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." She had even seen a masked man leaving their home, and then what? She pretended nothing had happened and went back to sleep. She had to have known what was the sentiment. She was called a killer by the online mobs. She was called a drug dealer by those who made false claims that she and her boyfriend were moving product and that the killings were related foul play. If Dylan had known or even just subconsciously feared what was about to happen to her roommates, although nothing appeared to have implicated her in that, there are trauma-related reasons for a person to delay reporting violence. It is common to be seized by fear, and psychologists have seen a wide variety of responses to brutal crimes. Famously, an ex-Buffalo University student who found her sorority sister Ard and bludgeoned in bed called 911, but only because she thought her roommate was unconscious from choking on vomit. "I only saw liquid, her hair caked on her face, tongue sticking through her teeth." Anna Zabel, now in her 50s, told Daily Mail reporters, speaking in defense of Dylan Mortensen. Only after paramedics arrived and commented on the bedroom being soaked in blood did Zabel notice it. The psychologist said it was a protective mechanism. That's what I say. But the wall had what looked like red broom marks. While Bethany had gone into hiding from the paparazzi in Reno, Dylan had also been driving underground when the Daily Mail had surveyed her family residence in Boise before posting a photograph allegedly of Dylan walking into a Starbucks alongside the caption, "The University of Idaho sophomore was wearing shorts in chilly weather and had her hair pulled back." The photo blasted across continents was actually of Dylan's younger sister, a 17-year-old minor that hadn't sat well with the girl's father, Brent Mortensen. "I'm a pretty big guy," he says, nodding to this physicality he could have used on photographers if he'd been a different type of person. Dylan was his firstborn daughter, and she was getting dragged through social media and the tabloids, all the shit they had said about her. He was obviously hurting, and his daughter, like the Showalters, has pulled the drapes closed. Chapter 58. Among the reasons social media skeptics have been manufacturing speculation that Dylan and Bethany were involved in the King Road homicides was an unusual unfolding of events in the morning of November 13th. Upon discovering the murders, neither Dylan or Bethany or both had reportedly summoned sorority and fraternity associates of the victims to the residence before anyone called 911. Several friends came over, Hunter Johnson included. Eventually, it was apparently Hunter who had called 911 and reported one or more homicides, although the 911 terminology of unconscious person was the placeholder phrasing the Moscow Police Department used until death was confirmed. The police reportedly arrived to a small gathering of students outside the house, all of them visibly upset. It wasn't unreasonable for online sleuths to wonder how long the victims' friends from the Greek system had been at the residence before Hunter called the police and whether or not anything else had transpired in that time frame. Had the students accidentally interfered with evidence, intentionally cleaned up the scene, or mischievously gotten their story straight, if only to cover for something unrelated to the murders? The Moscow Police Department reportedly had those same questions, which, following standard policy, were asked of the surviving victims behind closed doors. The general public wouldn't get answers until a suspect was brought to trial, if even then. That hadn't stopped the media from trying to uncover those answers, and others, of course. Reporters had seemingly unending questions for the victims' friends, and if they couldn't be reached, their collegiate hangouts and places of employment were visited. The Mad Greek and the Corner Club received the most inquiries, with journalists dragging camera crews inside or waiting on sidewalks for inbound customers. At the corner club, the doorman had to continually throw out members of the press for bothering their clientele with questions about how drunk Maddie and Kaylee had been the night of their murders, how devious they believed either Jack Decor or Jack Showalter might be, how close Adam the bartender might have been with one of the girls. Sometimes the new visitors to local watering holes seemed of more depraved or possibly heartbroken variety than traditional media members. They snapped selfies in front of the Mad Greeks, clenched drapes, shot video from cell phones while driving by, or just stared blankly at the front door as if looking at a ghost. In front of the murder house, as if continued to be called, some who traveled miles reportedly filmed TikTok dances for their followers. Things had clearly gotten out of hand. Yeah, the TikTok dances, that's that's ridiculous. But amid all the craziness surrounding the mystery of the King Road homicides, a secondary mystery unfolded online. In the University of Idaho murders case discussion Facebook group, a user named Papa Roger had been commenting on intimate details of the case, some of which seemed eerily insightful. This was long before a suspect had been found and before any details of the crime scene were released to the public. Papa Roger avatar, a computer-generated photo he chose to represent himself, looked shockingly similar in retrospect to Brian Koberger, but Papa Roger had been posting his theories and questions about the murders long before Koberger was a known suspect. On November 30th, he posted, "Of the evidence released, the murder weapon has been consistent as a large fixed blade knife. This leads me to believe they found the sheath." Police had said they were seeking the public's help in searching for that style of weapon and that they had not said why. Not until Koberger was arrested did the public learn of the K-bar knife sheath that had been left at the scene. At one point, according to Newsweek, Papa Roger began to argue about the murders with another Facebook user who asked, "Why do you communicate like a serial killer?" The creep factor that Brian Koberger had reportedly been known for was also apparent in Papa Roger, who was later removed from the Facebook group by its administrators. When questioned months later about whether Koberger might have been Papa Roger, one of the Facebook group admins said that whoever it was on here and argued incessantly with people and said some really creepy stuff and posted similar questions to Brian's crime questions, meaning Koberger's Reddit survey of criminals in conjunction with his graduate work. She added that coincidentally, we removed Papa Roger at 7:10 the evening before Brian's arrest. He created a group page and had 6 people in it. No one has heard from Papa Roger since the arrest. And simultaneously on Reddit, a user who called himself Inside Looking had been posting in the Moscow murders thread. His profile photo was that of a masked man dressed in black like the intruder Dylan Mortensen had privately described to police. In a post, Inside Looking wrote that the killer parked behind the house, approached property through the tree line, entered sliding door, and left it open, committed murders and exited sliding door. After Koberger's arrest, retired FBI agent Jennifer Koffendorfer spoke to major TV networks about her belief that Papa Roger had indeed been Koberger and that the name had perhaps been borrowed from 2014 misogynist incel hero named Elliot Rodger, who killed 6 people in a stabbing and shooting spree that included an attack on Alpha Phi sorority house in California. All 6 victims were college students. It did not seem a coincidence that among the items seized from Koberger's home in Pennsylvania, according to the evidence log, was a book with underlining on page 118. Elliot Rodger had written a manifesto that described his loneliness and inability to connect with women. On page 118 of that manifesto were the lines, "Women must be punished for their crimes of rejecting such a magnificent gentleman as myself. All of those popular boys must be punished for enjoying heavenly lives and having sex with all the girls while I had to suffer." We did read that page, the whole page, one night. Discussing similarities between the two men, Koffendorfer told podcaster Tyler Feller, "It's a view of rejection throughout their whole lives that had to really endure, and I say endure because that's how I believe it felt to Elliot and possibly to Brian as well. Some question whether the real murderer could be bold enough to get on social media forums that followed his crimes." Yeah. Koffendorfer responded on Twitter, "He drove his own car, carried his phone, and didn't clip in his sheath tight enough. So I believe he could leave a digital trail. He was a hot mess. Intelligence with no common sense equals a criminal bound to be caught." And the BTK killer, whom Koberger had studied at DeSales under Catherine Ramsland, had behaved similarly, taunting the police through letters written to his local news agencies. Thanks, Jenna, for gifting out 5 memberships. Welcome into the group, people that are getting memberships. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. And he was like under Kathleen Ramsland, but he did his DeSales stuff online. Like he didn't study in the murder house and stuff. Like all the cool stuff we thought he did, he didn't do that. If I was going to school there, I'd be like, you better let me go up in the murder house and let me mess around with some stuff. Thanks, Jenna. And it was Micro, gotcha. Oh, I can't even say that one. We're going to call you Mal and Cynthia. That's probably so wrong. Jenny and Home and Hounds. Oh. See, I had to like look at, I had to like do that too to see. Did you guys see that? Uh-oh, that's not good, is it? Is it chin? That's not good if I'm looking. Gotta look down. I need my eyes checked. So the possibility that Papa Roger and Inside Looking were Brian Kohlberger in digital disguise had become more interesting to audiences than yet another photo of the Corner Club bar. I remember a creator actually getting kicked out of the Corner Club for just messing with people. Chapter 59. So Michael and Marianne Kohlberger had a rough go of things over the years. In their 2010 bankruptcy documents, they listed their savings account as holding only $49.77, their checking account with $398, their cash on hand as only $65, and a credit card debt of more than $57,000 across 15 cards. 15 cards? Who gave you 15 cards? How do you get that many? Their income had hardly been enough to raise 3 kids without struggling, and yet the Kohlbergers had somehow managed, and their children had not gone without a roof over their heads. The oldest daughter, Amanda, had dabbled with acting in her 20s. She landed at least one role in a slasher film, but eventually both she and her younger sister, Melissa, had become mental health therapists. And Brian, of course, he seemed to turn his life around, studiously pursuing his PhD. Things had seemingly fallen into place for the Kohlberger parents, and yet now their lives had been upended again by the horrific accusations against their son. Brian was being accused of committing a quadruple homicide with a large bladed knife, of all things, of being a slasher like in the movies his sister had been associated with. And the method used in the murders was especially disturbing and pointed to a deeper level of brokenness. Anytime somebody commits a murder or assault by choking, stabbing, or making bodily contact, it always speaks to the level of rage. Forensic psychologist Natalie Nafati-Burelli told a reporter for Seeker while dissecting a Pittsburgh mass attack that involved a 16-year-old slashing 19 of his fellow high school students. When you are stabbing someone, it's close and in your face. The experience is more visceral and more graphic, more proactive. It speaks to emotionality, rather rage or paranoia. Brian Kohlberger, who may have been filled with such rage specifically towards women, had grown up in a home with 3 of them. In the turmoil following Kohlberger's arrest, the family finances were apparently taking another hit. According to a News Nation report, Amanda and Melissa had lost their jobs because of their association with their now infamous brother, even though he had yet to go on trial for his alleged crimes. And Michael and Marianne's home was reportedly on the edge of foreclosure. Carrie Rawson, the BTK killer's daughter, experienced similar financial and social hardship after her father was arrested. Most of her immediate family members were unable to work for several months because of stress or orchestrations at work, in the workplace. It's ostracizing them. I can't think of the word. That I can't say it, so I'm sorry. We're just going to move on. Her uncle, the BTK's brother, had a good job at Boeing, but was forced into early retirement. And the BTK's mother, Rawson's grandmother, had literally been repeatedly falling from the stress of the media constantly following her. She'd been moved into a nursing home and forced to take a different last name for her safety. That's sad. The only way to understand what the Kohlbergers might be going through, Rawson told News Nation, was to see them as crime victims themselves. You have to start from that place, she said, but the financial and social stress wasn't the only collateral damage the Kohlbergers might have been facing. By the month of May, Michael and Marianne were subpoenaed to testify before a Monroe County, Pennsylvania investigative grand jury in relation to the disappearance and murder of a woman in a nearby town just months before their son had moved to Pullman. It had been 1 year since 45-year-old Dana Smithers was last seen leaving her neighbor's house on foot at approximately 11 p.m. in the borough of Stroudsburg's 40 minutes away from the Kohlberger home on May 28, 2022. Her phone, purse, car keys, and medications were found in her own residence at a few houses down, leading investigators to summarize that Smithers had made it home before meeting with probable violence. Nobody really knew what happened to her, though, until on April 27th of the following year, while Brian Kohlberger was in jail on suspicion of committing the King Road homicides. Decomposed human remains were found in a wooded area of Stroudsburg and positively identified to belonging to Smithers. Almost immediately after Kohlberger's parents were subpoenaed to testify before the grand jury, the public had questions. Mainly, why had they been brought in? It seemed logical to assume that Brian Kohlberger was suspected of being involved in Dana Smithers' murder and that Michael and Marianne were perhaps his alibi or lack thereof. We all thought that too. We all thought that. Well, thank you, Jenna. That's so sweet of you. Thank you. That's very nice of you. Thank you so much. Where were we at? Almost immediately. Wait, where the person? But the Stroud Area Regional Police Department speedily issued a formal statement contradicting any ideas about Brian Kohlberger's association with the Smithers murder. Wonder if they ever solve that. The SARPD has no evidence that Dana Smithers' disappearance is in any way tied to Idaho murder suspect Brian Kohlberger, read the official press release from Jennifer Lyon, chief of police. More speculation arose after that, since there was no alleged connection. Perhaps Kohlberger's parents had been compelled to testify as a mere ruse to confirm Brian's alibi or something similar, and in doing so, perhaps provide other useful information about their son during the course of the proceedings. Pennsylvania law allowed otherwise sealed grand jury testimony to be shared between police departments. In this case, the Moscow PD could review Michael and Mary Ann's sealed testimony months ahead of Brian Kohlberger's trial. Kohlberger's parents hired an attorney who unsuccessfully attempted to squash the Monroe County subpoena and additional hit to their budget. The financial burden of visiting their son in the Latah County jail all the way across the country in Idaho must have seemed out of the question. They had reportedly not seen him since his arrest, but had talked to him on the phone. He knows absolutely no one, Mary Ann has said on Reddit in the days before Kohlberger loaded his belongings and fueled up on gas to start his PhD program. And we now have no family there. I worry about him being lonely. Now for Marianne and Michael to see their son again in the near future seemed unlikely. Okay, we got chapter 60. I wanted to see how many chapters were in this. Because then there's the epilogue, but... Oh, chapter 60. This is the last chapter. Okay, another grand jury had recently convened in Idaho. Its purpose was to determine whether or not sufficient evidence existed to indict, meaning officially charge Brian Kohlberger with the King Road homicides and bring him to trial. This was confusing to some followers of the case on social media, since Kohlberger was already languished in jail under the presumption of his likely guilt, and ironic, a contrast to the presumption of innocence the accused are judicially afforded. The grand jury elected to indict, and Kohlberger was soon brought to an arraignment where by law he was to either plead guilty, not guilty, or stand silent, in which case the judge would enter a not guilty plea on his behalf. Sometimes the defendant would stand silent in rebellion against their attorney or the courts, other times as a tactic such as ensuring he would not be on the record as saying not guilty, which might cause undue hostility from jurors who might later decide his fate. An inquisitive public had not yet seen Kohlberger since his initial court appearance over 4 months ago. Now he wore the same prisoner garb over what appeared to be concealed bulletproof vest, filling out his torso. Well, thank you for being a member for so long. And if your arm changed, your titanium arm, your rainbow now. I need to use my little membership things. I haven't been in a chat though in a while, it seems like. Okay, we read all that. So Kohlberger looked stern. His skin was pale color of someone kept exclusively indoors for several months. His shackled feet shuffled as he entered the courtroom. He sat heavily beside Ann Taylor, his primary public defender, and did not look behind him. If he had, he would have seen what might have been dozens of family members of the victims. Steve and Christy Gonzalez were there, along with their daughter Olivia and her newborn baby. Olivia sat in the gallery just feet from from Kohlberger and gently bounced her baby in a harness across her chest. Steve Gonzalez had his eyes locked on Kohlberger, glaring. Kohlberger was again read the charges he faced included the 4 counts of premeditated homicide along with the additional charge of burglary. Look at that, 16 months, serious. It's a long time. Trips. Oh, thanks, Sirius, for the super sticker. That's awfully sweet of you. Thank you. Thanks for being a member for so long. Yeah, so over here, names are cool on my stuff. I don't know what. Do I not have enough people or something? Like subscribers? I think I do. Yeah, because people with less subscribers than me are having. I don't know. Because a lot of chats, if you haven't noticed, it's been the @ sign. We cool over here. Everyone's names is their regular name. I don't know what I did or what I didn't do, but I ain't touching nothing. Because then I won't know you guys if you guys all go to your name. Unless you have your screen name as your other name. I'll be like, who are all these people? So Kohlberger nodded his head in understanding as the case's new judge, a University of Idaho law school graduate, John C. Judge, read the charges against him. With each question asked of him, Kohlberger leaned forward and spoke firmly into the microphone at his table. Yes, I do, he said when asked if he understood his rights. No, he said rigidly when asked if he had any questions. He clenched his jaw, glanced briefly at his attorney. Judge spoke in a somber monotone. If you are found guilty or plead guilty on each charge, you could be facing 10 years in prison, followed by 4 consecutive life sentences or the death penalty. When it was time for Kohlberger's plea to be entered, Ann Taylor stood from her seat. Your Honor, we will be standing silent, she said. The BTK killer, whom Kohlberger had studied at DeSales, had initially done the same. The judge entered not guilty pleas on Kohlberger's behalf. A trial was set for October 2nd, and Kohlberger was walked out of the courtroom by armed sheriff deputies. Despite the sweeping gag order in place to prevent the families of the victims from talking about the case to the media, Gonzalez spoke with a reporter after the arraignment. He had a new goatee and looked tougher somehow than he had a few months earlier. He said that his primary emotion in the courtroom had been rage. Then he had shifted to a more productive mindset, he said, reminding himself to pay better attention to the proceeding, to take notes, to memorize, to understand, not to just suffer through the anger he'd felt building up. His family needed him to be more strategic than that. Justice doesn't fall out of the sky, he said. Sometimes you got to earn it. Then he added, speaking about his daughter and her friends, we're looking for someone to pay the price for what he did to them. It's not one person. It's four individuals that were doing everything they could possibly do to better their lives. They just went to bed one night and some monster snuck into their home and killed them. His eyes staring into the camera were as dark as anvils. Gonzalez also spoke with CNN, reminding the world that he wanted the death penalty for Brian Kohlberger. He hoped that he would send a message to potential murderers in the state of Idaho. Unfortunately, a lot of bad things happen across America, Gonzalez said, but we moved here and other people move here for the safety that we have. We have to make sure that the world knows that you can't come to Idaho, you can't hunt our children down, and you can't kill them in their beds and just be given, a room to stay. Kohlberger's silence when it came to entering his plea had surely irked the families of the victims. By all appearances, they believed in his guilt. None of them come out to say otherwise. And now, with the seeming mountain of at least circumstantial evidence and the reported DNA match, Brian Kohlberger's only response had been the absence of one. He had nodded his head. He had clenched his jaw. He had said yes to the judge, but to the charges against him, only silence echoed. For 6 months now, there have been other silences, ones that are understandable, even relevant. Beyond the yellow crime scene tape with the words "do not cross" draping the perimeter of the property at King Road, strangers continue to come by the hundreds to quietly pay their respects. Some had out-of-state license plates on their vehicles, having journeyed from afar. Others were U of I students trapezing up the hill with their backpacks clenched tight. They stared nothing more, or said nothing, sometimes dropped flowers at the makeshift memorial that had sprung up in front of the house. At the U of I vigil on campus, there was this silent sea of faces staring up at Ben Mogan while he spoke about his Maddie. His hands had nervously jiggled in the pockets of a suit that seemed uncomfortable against his skin. There were silences as he paused to catch his breath. Maddie's mother and stepfather, Karen and Scott Laramie, had walked silently into the hole of their lives left by their daughter's absence. They made fewer and fewer public statements, seemingly adrift in their pain. Jeff Kernodle had stopped answering his phone. It had been ringing with media requests for him to talk about Xana, and it hadn't gone silent. Only Jeff had the ache of losing his daughter, maybe too strong to put into words. It was a silence he had earned. Xana's mother, of course, must have been enduring this silence that came with knowing how much she had missed those hours that don't come back. And in the sunrise that Jim and Stacy Chapin watched some mornings together with their coffees, they were likely yellow and white streaks across the sky that reminded them of their boy. The air came all the way across a field to touch them, as if carrying Ethan on its wings. And in those small moments of silence where life was remembered as precious, there may have been hope. Okay, so that's the book. We'll read through the epilogue. I think it's only like a couple of little pages. We can read through it. Okay, we'll see what it says. By mid-spring, flowers had bloomed along the edges of 1122 King Road. A blue sky security shed the size of a small snow cone shack had been wheeled into the property atop a utility trailer and now replaced the police-style vehicles that had been guarding the house from looky-loos for months. The shack had a small air conditioning unit and light gray cinder blocks pushed against the wheels of its trailer to keep it from rolling downhill, the on-set security guard with it. The property had been donated by its owner, the University of Idaho, whose administrators planned to tear down the boarded-up house within the year. There was talk of building a small memorial on the location and also talk of simply leaving the property bare, perhaps seeded with grass that would thicken over time. Whatever would become of the spot, there was a sense of urgency related to starting over in whatever ways possible. Perhaps the teardown would happen after Brian Kohlberger's trial. Some speculated jurors should have an opportunity to review the crime scene in person. Administrators from the university were tight-lipped about the specific date for the structure's demolition, but had said they wanted it removed before the upcoming fall semester. Nobody doubted that the house would eventually be destroyed, but not from a collective memory of those who had been touched by the crimes that had occurred inside. Judging by media traffic related to the King Road case, the numbers affected were in the millions. The temperature in Moscow on May 14th, 2023, the day of spring commencement, was a perfect 79 degrees. The sun shone through a clear blue sky, and a light breeze carried the scent of blossoms from the university's many gardens and from the purple lilacs that would soon be humming with bees. At 9 a.m., the ceremony inside the university's 140-foot tall Kibbe Dome arena. Maddie Mogan was posthumously awarded her business degree. She would have graduated on this day, and she lived to do so. In front of a crowd of thousands, the arena seats and ground level rows of elbow-to-elbow students dressed in black graduation regalia. Her mother and stepfather walked on stage to accept a copy of her bound and embossed diploma book. Her stepfather took teeniest breaths, and Maddie's mother held tightly to his arm. They shook hands with the president of the university, and Maddie's mother smiled with pride, blinking back tears. The couple had followed by Maddie's father, who accepted an identical copy. At a subsequent 2 p.m. ceremony on the same day, again in front of thousands, Kaylee's 4 siblings walked on stage to accept a diploma book on her behalf. Kaylee had been scheduled to graduate with her degree in general studies just weeks after the murders. Now her 3 sisters were dressed in church clothes and her brother in shorts and a ball cap. Just an Idaho boy, after all, to bring home a symbol of Kaylee's hard work for the mantle. Her sister Olivia, as Maddie's mother had done earlier, smiled proudly through fluttering eyelashes. It came as a surprise to most in attendance that an additional posthumous degree in sociology and criminology was awarded that day. It was given to the family of a young woman named Lupita Ruiz. 5 adults and a toddler took the stage on Lupia's behalf. They stood solemnly, the toddler asleep against the chest of one of the men. Another of the men held a poster-sized photograph of I don't know if I'm saying her name right. I feel bad if I'm not. If I am, Lupidia, in the frame. The young woman had died at 21 of injuries inflicted in a car crash. Death had not come only to the families of the King Road victims that year. The reminder seemed to settle heavily across the thousands of faces in attendance. Life is fragile, and it doesn't take a murder to cut someone's time short. After the ceremony, which lasted just under 2 hours, graduates poured through the exits of the Kibbe Dome with the tassels of their graduation caps having been flipped from one side to another, that well-known symbol of beginning a new chapter in life. Outside the campus grounds had mostly been emptied of students, but it wasn't the kind of emptiness that felt during the many weeks before a suspect was arrested. Now the walkways were lined with flowers and ever since with the energy of living things that clicked and buzzed from the grass. But then Kaylee and Jack's golden doodle Murphy had his own Instagram page curated by Jack Decor, and with more than 100,000 followers, Murphy posted mostly selfies with comments like, "This is a throwback of me, photo of me. My mom loved this one. He was a puppy in early photos, fully grown later." And the city of Moscow had its own surfeit of new followers now, and it didn't much seem to care or necessarily need them. It was hard to be known for something horrible when what it was built on had been something great. The smell of Ponderosa from the nearby mountains drifted into the valley now, where the weather was warm again, and the rush of clean air coursed through the heart of downtown, where customers of the popular organic food co-op and hipster gym rats mingled contently with old school Idahoans born in Moscow back when most of the coffee was still drunk black. Across a sprawling green field of campus, two groups of students, mostly young men, played a pickup rugby game on this warm graduation day. It was shirts against skins, and half of them had thrown their t-shirts towards the edges of the freshly mowed grass. They ran up and down the field, laughing in the sunlight. One of them jogged to his girlfriend on the sidelines and kissed her, then lifted her into the air not without struggling. They fell in the heap together. There was a steady but slow stream of traffic heading out of town. It seemed like water flowing. Across the field, three young women wordlessly bumped a volleyball between them with almost perfect form, country music playing from a Bluetooth speaker, lying in the grass beside one of their backpacks and a knocked-over clear water bottle that caught the sunlight and refracted it. Life, that's what's happening, and nobody would take that for granted again. Okay, we did it. We did it. And welcome in, everybody. That's a unique name. Yeah. I know. I'm like, wow. The names were kind of unique in this book. I will say that. Okay. Well, we did it. We've read two now. So we've read Howard Bloom. This one came out before Howard's. That's just how far we kind of skipped this one, went to Howard's. But now we can say we read it. I bought the book, but I was glad that I was able to get it like on the computer like that for you guys, because like that way you guys could see it, and that way I could read it that way, because that was a lot easier than if I were to read it. Like, I mean, these are small letters for me. I put everybody to sleep. I'm getting you guys ready for your bedtime. Oh, were you trying to look it up? Yeah, I don't know why I haven't seen anybody over here, their name be like at and then the thing. Mine goes in, I think, like that. No, I think mine just goes in TitaniumBuilt. I have a bug bite on my shoulder. I don't ever get bit like Vincent does. I don't. And I thought, I know I'm really tan, aren't I? Is she? I've been out. Your girl's been outside. She's enjoying her summer. People are inside all day watching the same YouTube. Not me. You only get one summer for the year. And I get that seasonal depression. I do. I very much so get seasonal depression. Okay, this is like a little cluster of like, I don't know what got me. Thanks, Brandy. I was just talking about you today. I forget what it was. It was something funny. I was like, if I ever need this information to get out, I'm just going to tell Brandy Wine. I told Vincent that. He thought it was funny. But yeah, I don't know what got me. It was like a spider or something. Do I have a branded account? I don't. Like, I don't have the check mark beside my name. That's like if you have over 100,000 subscribers, you get that. So maybe that's what it but I've seen them in other chats that don't have that many. Oh, poison ivy. I don't think so. But, I did have one, I better not be itching it and it's touching my face. I think it's just like a bug that got me. Oh, I forgot to tell you guys our birds left. Our birds left today. So, we had our pigeons come back for a third round at our place because they love us. Let me show you guys something. Oh my god, I need this. I told Vince I need this. I don't know how I'm gonna get my hands on this little thing, but I'm gonna get one. We're gonna see if it works. Let me send the pictures to myself. You guys are gonna die when you see this thing. And already Ladybug's already gonna want one. So we might as well get two. I think they're like $199. Let me see. I think that's how much it was. Look at this thing. We were in Sam's Club yesterday and I saw this and I was like, oh my God. So basically, it's a house for your bird with a camera in it. Look, you can see the babies. It's like an overhead camera. Isn't that the cutest thing ever? I mean, someone could probably make me that, but I need it. Real name is Japan tonight. Hey, Water Rider. I meant to say hello to you, by the way. I like your flowers. Those are poppy flowers. Huh. How about that? How about that? I have a boutique. It's called Poppy and Ari, and Poppy is like the flower, but it's spelled Poppi. It was before the drink came out too. I named my business before the drink Poppy came out, like the little seltzer drinks, but I need this. I know you need a big one, Ladybug, but my birdies would fit in that. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. I don't know, like, I guess it just traps them. I mean, how do they get out? Like, I don't know how it works. I know there's a way that, they can get back out, but like, I just think it's so cool. I think it's so cool. I think that's like the coolest thing ever. Like, I'm going to have to figure out, like, I need me one of them. Like, I don't know pigeons stay all year. That's the only thing though. Like, if they're here all year and they need a little house to make sure they're warm, I'll get them that. I'll get them that. You guys are too much. Oh, hot match on a mosquito bite. I know that you can they used to say, clear nail polish. My mom used to do that. That crap never worked. I don't know what she was thinking. It must have worked somewhere. Someone must have thought it worked. I don't know. Like my mom said, like if it's itching, like I guess to like take the sting away, put some clear nail polish on it. Now I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it. I'm going to try it, but I still think it will still itch. Yeah, they left me today, Ladybug. My birdies did. There was like one left. And I was like, one's gone, Vincent. And he's like, oh, that's the littler one up there. Because he knows the tree that they go to too. Like the whole family's on the tree. It's like one tree limb. Like, and so there was like just a little guy up there, and we were like, you can do it, you can do it. And then he did it. It's sweet. I guess it's what you call getting old. I don't know. I like it though. I like birds now. I even told the baby bird if he wanted to come inside, I was like, I'll get you a house and everything, man. Deodorant. Ooh, that's a good idea. I don't know why I would think that was a good idea, but I'll be doing it. Ice would be good. Rubbing alcohol. I just bought some today. Might try that too. Paste bacon. You guys see, that's why I bring my problems to y'all. Yeah, I know. I missed it like fly because I was sitting like we have this table back here, but we have like it's even wider in our living room. It's like I don't know. It's like oversized. And so I'm sitting there like this, like looking out the window at it, and it wouldn't fly. I'm like, it's gonna be here for a minute. And then I walk away and it flew. Everything seems to be solvable with fire. Well, tell your husband thanks for his service. It really is really cool. It's cool, like, to watch the mom, like, their little wings will be just, like, where they're, like, kind of just they're scared, right? They're not clipped or something. I don't know, like, their mom does something, and she'll start pecking at them and making their wings get, like, bigger. Like, she's, like, ready. I think she was just, like, ready for them to fly. Like, she was like, "Come on." She kept pecking at him, and then she flew away, and he was like, I ain't doing it." And then he did. Now I'm gonna have to get the bird box. I need the bird box. I think I need the bird box. I think I do. I think I really do. You know what Vincent got Rocky? Just making sure he's not in here. He got him a little cat tower. It comes tomorrow from Amazon. I've had cats since I was 5 years old. 5 years old. Tell me why I have never owned a cat tower before, ever, not ever once, never, ever. Ever. I've never done it. But for him, I was like, he needs something. We gotta get this cat in the sun. He fell off my desk the other day. He fell out of the window actually because he's too fat. The windowsills are too small for him. And I was in here, and normally he'll let me rise the desk and I'll pick him up, and then I lower the desk and he takes a little ride down. He's cool. He's 18. But he was up there and he fell backwards and he hit his back on my desk. And I was like, oh, I almost cried. He was fine. He just walked away, like, whatever. But I was like, he needs something. So Vincent was like looking up, like, he was like, which one do you like? So we picked him out one because I'm like, he's 18. I need him to have this. We got him a big one too. So I think he's going to be excited. I think at first he's going to be like, what the heck's this thing? But then I think he'll, like, be excited. What'd Jenna do? It is very cool, Ladybug. It really is. It's like literally like watching a mama getting her little youngin' ready. The dads don't do too much. Like they sit there, like they'll go up and sit with the eggs and let the female go get the food. Like, why don't you go get her? Bring her dinner. Bring her dinner. Oh, you got him? He betrayed me for smoked brisket and moved in with my cat would have done that. My cat would have done the same thing. My cat straight left me the other day. Okay, Vincent was laying on the bed. Cat's laying on the bed. Me and the dogs come out from being in here, and I'm over there and I'm making noise. So Vincent sometimes he'll get up and he'll just lay on the couch for a minute until I get, like, settled. Would you believe it if I told you the cat left with him? He's like, bye. I was like, oh, I guess you're not my cat anymore. But I mean, he has had Vincent in his life for almost 10 years now. So yeah, boys will be boys. They hung out together. So, but I'll be on tomorrow. I don't know. I think I want to start that other podcast. The other podcast is really good. And I think that'll be good. We do like 1 or 2 a week to get us into trial. Cause we've only got like a couple months and we'll be streaming. I know, is she? It's crazy. I've just been staying out. I've been just trying to stay out because I'm just like to the point where, it's just not even content creation anymore. We're not even creating content. I think my birds would do better, actually. I think I should get a bird cam. Oh, the eagle dad incubates, gets and feeds the eaglets too. Well, that's a good dad. My bird makes the mama go get it. Well, thank you guys for coming in tonight. I appreciate it. I don't know. I haven't even been on YouTube, so yeah, it's probably a bunch of crazies out there. They're all crazies. I've been watching this girl named Jessica Kobesi. I don't know if that's not her last name. I just ruined her last name. But she does photography. Guess who loves photography? Not me. But you know what I like about her? She's cute. And she, like, I don't know, she's funny. she's like, I forget what culture she is, but she's very funny and she's very sweet. And she just, as a photographer, and she goes over like America's Next Top Model, like content, or like different like wedding pictures and stuff like that. And she'll like review them and see like why they were good or why they were bad. And I don't know. It's pretty entertaining. It's pretty entertaining. Yeah. I'm not spiteful. Not me. Okay, Tony, shut up. I'm still number one. Genesis. That's the best comment ever. Jennifer's Tanya. Oh, it'll come. It'll come. Mod chat now, Queen. That's so funny. Oh, I didn't read your first. I don't even need to read. Like, I just know it's you, Aries, always. If it's like if it's all capitals, that's when I know. But thank you guys for being here. Hopefully Jen will get the number one spot. But I'll see you guys all tomorrow. Have a wonderful night. I may come on tomorrow during the day because I will be by myself. So won't have much to do if it's going to be raining. So I might see you guys tomorrow during the day. If not, I'll be back tomorrow night. So bye, guys.
Just like the street lights lit this town, like a fire in a blaze, gotta burn it down. Can't be afraid to leave this out.